Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the latest mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. I'm Will Robinson Smith. I'll be conducting our commentary for the duration of this coverage. We are broadcasting, as we always do, from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Hope you're all having a good and productive week so far. Appreciate you cruising on back with us here on a Thursday evening. The weekend is oh so tantalizingly close. We appreciate you stopping by for SpaceX's latest Falcon 9 launch. Got a little more than 1,200 of you in the live chat so far. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, share the stream, allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. We've got most of the gang out tonight. Our friends Chuck and Jen Briggs, as well as Pete Carsons, are supporting us with tracking views this evening. Spaceflight Now editor Stephen Young is also running the technical operations of the broadcast tonight. Our photographer is Adam Bernstein, Michael Kane, out and about getting ready to shoot this launch. John Pisani has the night off, but if you're not following them, you can find the photographers on their handles at X. Adam is at Aburn NYC, Michael Kane at MD Kane Jr. Be sure to follow John, though, as well. You can find him at John Pisani Photo. While you're there, be sure to follow Spaceflight Now, simply at Spaceflight Now. And if you're not on X, you can also find us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook. And we're counting down to SpaceX's 51st Falcon 9 flight of the year so far. Another batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites on board this Falcon 9 rocket that's getting ready to head out from Space Launch Complex 40 there at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Time of departure, aiming for 9:51 p.m. Eastern. That is 01:51 UTC for our friends around the world. I want to thank our moderators who are helping us in the live chat today. Our thanks to Jeff Hansen, Callistia Lee. Just scrolling to see if we've got any of the other mods with us tonight. And not seeing any, but that's not necessarily conclusive that they're not hanging around in the background. So be sure to do them a solid, help them out tonight for all the mods we have on board for this launch. We ask that you refrain from using all caps. Please converse in English so that our moderators can respond appropriately. We ask that you do not delve into overt politics and, most importantly, remember to be kind to one another. We have a wonderful channel member community who make these live launch opportunities possible. So want to shout out folks like RL, Four Finger J, Bill in Lauderdale, the Rocket Girls, Sulfur for Lunch, Pony Girl, and many others. Jim Falley, good to see you this evening. Glenn A, hello, hello. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, that is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here at the Cape in 4K. If you haven't had a chance to do so, you can catch our latest video up on the channel right now, a launch replay put together by our Adam Bernstein, edited in part by Stephen Young. You can catch that on the channel right now, and channel members got a multi-hour sneak peek of that before it went live for everyone else. And I see we've got some folks chiming in on where they're watching from. We see Pompey is in the house from Slim 57. Got Sandra Moran from Orlando. MR Lorax checking in from Claremont here in Florida. Let us know where you're watching from tonight, whether you're here with us in the Sunshine State or elsewhere around the world, like the Rocket Girl, joining us from Quebec, Canada. William Funk in Thousand Oaks, California. And channel member Marcia Shaddix joining us from Bowling Green, Kentucky. Been through Bowling Green before. It's a very lovely place. Time now T minus 51 minutes, 50 seconds on the clock currently before the flight of this Falcon 9 rocket. Mission name Starlink 6-75 with 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites on board. As we're preparing for this liftoff coming up here in just about 51 and a half minutes, let's go ahead and walk through the countdown timeline, let you know the milestones that we're looking for ahead of a good flight of this Falcon 9 rocket here tonight. SpaceX does its readiness poll electronically, but generally speaking, they take it at T minus 38 minutes. Once the go ahead for tanking is given, fueling of the Falcon 9 begins at T minus 35 minutes. Starts with the loading of RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene on board the Falcon 9's first and second stages. At the same time, liquid oxygen begins flowing on board the Falcon 9's first stage. T minus 30 minutes is when SpaceX begins to load a cryogenic helium on board the Falcon 9's first stage. Same is true on the second stage, about a few minutes after that. Helium is important because it's used to pressurize the pressure vessels on the first stage. Make sure they're at the correct pressure during flight. T minus 23 minutes is when the second stage RP-1 tank loading wraps up. Then at T minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds is when the strong back chill down process gets underway. That's when SpaceX begins to condition the feed lines there at the pad ahead of second stage liquid oxygen load. We see this visually manifest as the so-called big vent that starts here at pad 40 at about T minus 20 minutes and 20 seconds. It's a good visual marker to let us know that SpaceX is counting down as expected. That venting will continue until 30 seconds before the T-minus 16-minute mark when that second stage LOX load begins. T-minus 7 minutes is when SpaceX starts to chill down the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon 9 booster. That process involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, and it helps protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes prior to liftoff, the first stage kerosene tank is full. Then at T minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the strong back retract sequence get underway. It starts with the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings opening up, and then the transporter erector, or the strong back, reclines a few degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket and stays in that position until liftoff, at which point it'll pull back in a much more rapid fashion to clear the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9. 3 minutes before liftoff, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same as true on the second stage about a minute afterwards, at which point the Falcon 9 is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch 45 seconds before flight. The engine ignition command is issued at T minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 for a T0 liftoff. Once again, coming up at 9:51 p.m. Eastern, 01:51 UTC, or in just about T minus 48 minutes and counting. SpaceX does have a roughly 4-hour window tonight that extends out to 1:51 a.m. Eastern on Friday, May 2nd. The length of that window is dependent on whether or not SpaceX has started tanking its Falcon 9 rocket. Once the fueling process begins, SpaceX is committed to at least making a run at it at that particular T0 mark. It's because SpaceX uses a super cold densified liquid oxygen, so they use a load and go style of fueling, essentially tanking right up to the point practically of liftoff. Weather shouldn't be any object for tonight's launch. The 45th Weather Squadron forecast a greater than 95% chance of favorable weather for this launch tonight. No weather constraints of note, no additional risk criteria either. Liftoff winds trending between 12 to 20 miles per hour. So, got a bit of a breeze out there tonight. May hear that through the mics, but otherwise should be quite a pleasant launch. Partly cloudy around Cape Canaveral this evening. So, depending on where you are watching from, if you're here with us in Central Florida or perhaps further on south, your views, of course, will vary by the amount of cloud cover in your particular neck of the woods. That said, if you are able to catch the Falcon 9 as it takes flight, whether it be it photo or video, we'd love to see what you catch. Go ahead and tag us on social media. Time now about 43 minutes, 20 seconds and counting. I want to thank some of our channel members for their generous gifting of new memberships. Big thanks to channel member and moderators Rick Donner and Callistia Lee for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships apiece. And a welcome aboard to Catherine Ray, joining of her own accord at the pad leader level. Appreciate you hopping aboard with us, Catherine, and to our 10 gifted channel members. Welcome to all of you as well. Glad to have all of you with us. And for those of you who received gifted memberships, be sure to thank Rick and Callistia in the live chat if you haven't already. And we hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. Certainly appreciate the support. One other little bit of housekeeping. If you have a comment or question about tonight's mission or other goings on in the realm of space and spaceflight, go ahead and use the YouTube Super Chat feature. Not only will you be giving us some interesting things to talk about as you cruise on through the count, which will be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight now, and that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. Just about 4 minutes away from the point in which SpaceX will make the call on the startup prop load tonight. Of course, because they don't issue mission audio these days until 5 minutes out, we won't hear that call, but we'll be watching for signs of fueling once the presumed tanking process is in fact underway. Now T minus 37 minutes, 7 seconds and counting. As SpaceX has been preparing for this Falcon flight today. It's also been a notable day for NASA and its Artemis program. Of course, over in the vehicle assembly building, they've been busily assembling the various components of the SLS rocket, or the Space Launch System rocket, that will carry 4 astronauts around the moon and back on the Artemis 2 mission, which currently is set for early in 2026. An important milestone to that, and arguably one of the longest poles in the tent that has been really decisive on the ability for this mission to launch and when it was going to launch. The Orion spacecraft went through an important passage today. You're taking a look at it inside the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building. Well, now Orion has officially been turned over from Lockheed Martin, the main prime company behind the Orion spacecraft, and they have turned over the keys to NASA in order to start the fueling and then eventually the integration process of the vehicle into the rest of the SLS stack. And when I say handing over the keys, I mean they literally had a key fob that they handed over from the Lockheed Martin team to the NASA team. This will be the first time that any astronauts have flown aboard an Orion spacecraft once it does take flight. Commander Reed Weissman will lead a 4-person team alongside pilot Victor Glover and mission specialist NASA astronaut Christina Cook and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen. As I mentioned, the next part of the trip for the Orion spacecraft will be some more travels here on Earth. It's going to be heading out to be loaded up with its various propellants and other consumables like oxygen and water. They'll then install the launch abort system as well as the protective fairings around Orion. Then it will head on over to, of course, this iconic building, the vehicle assembly building that you see there in the middle of your screen, where it will be integrated on the rest of the rocket. Next up inside the VAB is actually the integration of the ICPS, which is the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. That was scheduled to happen pretty recently, so we'll wait for confirmation that that has, in fact, been buttoned up. Still quite a bit of progress, and of course, this key milestone is NASA is working towards the launch of this next Artemis mission. Again, looking to lift off early next year. And of course, other items indicating other pieces of the future of the Artemis program are also around here, both visible and not in this shot. You can see just to the right of the Launch Control Center, or the LCC, there, sort of in the middle, close to the ground, where you can see those series of lights just to the right of the NASA meatball. To the right of that are the first 7 modules out of a total of 10 in support of the second mobile launcher, which will be which is designed to support launches of the much larger Block 1B version of the Space Launch System rocket, which instead of the aforementioned ICPS will instead use the Exploration Upper Stage, or the EUS, which is being designed and manufactured by Boeing. Just about 32 minutes on the clock right now, checking back in with this Falcon 9 rocket ready to launch tonight. It does appear, taking a closer look at the vehicle, like we are seeing some good signs of vapor there near the base, the Falcon 9 first stage booster. Feel pretty confident on that one at this point. And that means SpaceX is, in fact, fueling its Falcon 9 rocket, its workhorse vehicle. They're locking into that 9:51 target liftoff time tonight. Once again, if you are just joining us as we're now just coming around the bottom of the countdown hour ahead of liftoff, you're watching live coverage of the Starlink 6-75 mission from Spaceflight now. Reporter Will Robinson Smith. You're taking a live look at Space Launch Complex 40, where at present SpaceX is fueling its Falcon 9 rocket in preparation for the flight of 28 Starlink V2 Mini, believed to be optimized satellites, given the number. Taking a look at our live chat as well. I want to thank the more than 3,000 of you who are with us live tonight. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, share the stream. Allows more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage. Taking a look at the chat, want to thank a few folks for their support this evening. Our thanks to Jeff Hansen, who says, "Go Cape, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Starlink, Godspeed 1080." Yes, the booster supporting tonight's Falcon flight is tail number 1080 in the SpaceX fleet, looking to make its 18th trip to space and back. Talk a little bit more about its history in just a second here. Also want to thank Bill in Lauderdale, one of our channel members, for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate your support. Bill says, "Go SpaceX, go Spaceflight now." Don Flea with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Don. Appreciate the support tonight. Airplanes on a Stick. Still a great handle. The $2 super chat saying Spaceflight now is the hero we all need. That's very kind of you. Let's go. Jim Ebo with a $10 super chat as well, saying thanks to all. Thank you, Jim. And a $10 super chat as well from Callisto Lee saying, adding in my donation for Will's Tea and Halls Fund. Thanks for all you do. as it were. I actually do have a nice large cup of lemon tea beside me with some honey in it. I feel like I still haven't quite got my voice back from the 5 hours of broadcasting that we did on Monday. So hope you'll bear with me as not quite up to feel like full broadcasting stuff, but we soldier on. Speaking of soldiering on, let's go ahead and talk about the booster that is going to be launching this mission. Tail number 1080 in the SpaceX fleet, as I mentioned a moment or two ago. Its journey began with a crew mission back on May 21st of 2023. AX-2 sending the Dragon Freedom and its four-person crew on its way to the International Space Station. This was the second PAM, or private astronaut mission, that was given the go-ahead by NASA and the international partners. Just a happy coincidence. The AX-2 mission was led by Peggy Whitson, who will actually be flying to space coming up here. Now that it is May 1st, I can say at the end of the month, she is going to be leading the AX-4 mission, heading back to the International Space Station for her second time as a private astronaut, leading another four-person crew on a roughly 2-week mission. It's set to lift off on May 29th, so been just about a year since her last jaunt to the space station, or 2 years, I should say. Following up with this booster, next up was the Euclid mission on behalf of the European Space Agency. This is a wide-angle telescope that lifted off on the 1st of July back in 2023. That was followed up by this booster's first Starlink flight, 6-11, back on August 27th of that year. Another Starlink followed, 6-24, on October 22nd. One more crew mission for this booster, Axiom Mission 3, or AX-3, once again launching the Dragon named Freedom on January 18th. This time, Michael Lopez Alegria was the one leading the charge on this one. Another mission to the space station, this time with a cargo Dragon vehicle on March 21st of 2024. Couple more Starlinks after that, Starlink 6-52 on April 18th and 6-62 on May 23rd. That was followed up by the Astra 1P, otherwise known as the SES-24 mission, on June 20th of last year. Followed up by another cargo run to the space station, this one on behalf of Northrop Grumman, launching the Cygnus spacecraft on August 4th. And at that point, we go into a run of Starlink missions from here on out. We had Starlink 10-10 on October 15th, 6-69 on November 11th, 12-1 on November 25th, 12-2 on December 23rd, 12-4 on January 13th, 10-2 on February 18th, and most recently Starlink 6-80 on March 31st. Of course, leading up to tonight, where in just about 23 minutes, this Falcon 9 rocket will launch once again on the Starlink 6-75 mission. Taking a look at the chat here, James Castile with a $10 super chat. Thank you, James. Says, please recommend a website where I can determine upcoming launches that will have a northeast trajectory. My family vacations on the Georgia coast. Well, Can't off the top of my head think of a site that explicitly breaks out trajectory by trajectory where missions are going to go. I would certainly recommend you to our website, spaceflightnow.com. Click on the launch schedule tab. Broadly speaking, the missions that are heading to the northeast are going to be flights to the International Space Station. So, whenever you're aware of, for example, coming up at the end of this month, the AX4 mission or cargo resupply flights, those will all be heading in a northeast trajectory, lifting off from the Space Coast. Also, as we saw just earlier this week, the Kuiper missions launching from here, also heading in a northeasterly trajectory. As we're awaiting the start of the big event, I also want to thank Bill in Lauderdale for a $5 super chat. Tipping on behalf of Jim Finch and Martin Mont. Appreciate the support tonight. And hello, Jim and Martin. And Monkey Tree Rob with the $10 super chat says, ready for liftoff here in Lake Fairview, Orlando. Keep drinking that tea, Will. We need your voice. Thank you for the kind words. And should be good for another 20 minutes and some change, I think. Big event about to begin in roughly 5 seconds. And there you see it getting underway now. Yeah, about T minus 17 minutes, 30 seconds on the clock here. Roughly a minute left on this big vent before that tapers off. Second stage lock load is coming up here in about a minute and 15 seconds. And you can see the big vent has tapered off. So far, fueling is going quite smoothly here at pad 40 tonight. SpaceX and the rest of us cruise on into the weekend. Are looking at our next local launch from here in Florida coming up in the mighty early hours of Sunday morning. So fingers crossed for all of us that that slips a little bit into the window. It won't be at such a ghastly hour. But whether it be in the 4 o'clock hour or, as I think we're all here hoping, it'll be a little bit later, we will be live for you regardless. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and ring that bell. And that way you'll be notified when we do go live. And you won't be caught flat-footed. Especially if you live nearby, close enough to hear the rumble of the Falcon 9 rocket. Can sometimes be a rude awakening for folks. Now, just a little under 13 minutes to go before the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. As we're getting ready to see its ascent, let's go ahead and talk about where it's going to be flying once it leaves the pad. Let's talk a little trajectory, shall we? Falcon 9 rocket on Starlink 6-75 is going to be following the same flight path as all the other missions that are part of the Group 6 batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites. Going to be lifting off from Space Launch Complex 40 and then flying in a southeasterly trajectory with an arc a little bit to the east of the Bahamas. Following stage separation, the first stage booster B-1080 will be targeting a touchdown on the drone ship called Just Read the Instructions. If successful tonight, this will be the 118th booster landing on this particular drone ship and the 440th booster landing to date. And while SpaceX is definitely planning on reusing this booster and trying to certify for up to 40 flights with its first stage boosters, it also wants to do the same with its payload fairings, so they will be recovered after they splash down into the support of steerable parachutes a little bit further downrange from where the booster lands on the drone ship. Once in the water, they'll be scooped up by one of SpaceX's recovery vessels, and then brought back through Port Canaveral over to the Hangar X site here at the Kennedy Space Center, where they will be refurbished and turned around for future missions. Just 10 and a half minutes to go before the launch of the Falcon 9. So let's go ahead and take a moment to talk about the workhorse vehicle for SpaceX. The vehicle, which stands at 70 meters or 229 feet tall, has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Majority of that is made up by that first stage booster. Again, this is tail number 1080. Has flown 17 times before, looking for launch number 18 in just 10 minutes. At the first stage, at the base of the first stage, are 9 Merlin engines, which burn a rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen, producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. In the first stage, main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure clean separation. Also, the second stage engine nozzle is housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9, powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle, which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust, and it will be fired twice on today's flight to place the 28 Starlink V2 mini satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same propellant mix, that being RP1 and liquid oxygen, just like the first stage. Following the deployment of the Starlink satellites, there will be one final burn of that engine, a deorbit burn, helping to drive that upper stage back into the atmosphere where it's intended to burn up and help eliminate the risk of creating any unnecessary space debris on this flight. Finally, at the top of the Falcon 9 stack are the payload fairings that are currently encapsulating the 28 Starlink satellites. The fairings are made up of a carbon composite material and stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. The two fairing halves, again, will be recovered further downrange from where the booster lands on the drone ship, brought back into Port Canaveral, and then to Hangar X for refurbishment, turning around for future flights. 7.5 minutes on the clock. 10,500 of you watching live. Appreciate all of you that are here with us tonight. Taking a look at the live chat here. I want to thank channel member Chuck Close for a very generous $25 super chat. Good to see you this evening, sir. Thanks for the support. Ruth Leroll with a $5 super chat saying, my kitty and I are watching you on the tablet. Hopefully we can see the launch from Spring Hill, Florida. Fingers crossed they've got some good views tonight, but if not, appreciate you stopping by with us here at Spaceflight now, and we'll give you the best possible views on this side of Florida. Channel member Butterfly marking 16 months with us as a channel member, as we are now under 7 minutes, and SpaceX is thermally conditioning the engines at the base of the booster. Butterfly asking, when are we going to have a launch party? Will I enjoy every lunch? Thank you for the kind words. We'll have to talk about that behind the scenes about a in-person get together. It's not something that we have on the calendar at this particular moment, and I don't want to call an audible and have words with my supervisor later. But we'll circle back on that and think about when might be a good time for that. Now, under 6 minutes, the first stage kerosene tank at this point should be full. Also want to thank channel member moderator Rick Donner for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Appreciate you, Rick. Thanks for helping to grow our community here. And to our 5 newest channel members, welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Rick in the live chat. He'll be decided to stick around with channel membership. I also want to welcome in new channel members who just joined, Michael Mizrahi and Nicole Dice. Welcome aboard, Michael and Nicole. Glad to have you with us as well. And a big thank you to someone with the handle He Okay for a $20 super chat, which is very okay. Thank you so much for the support. And congrats on what looks like a very nice fish that you caught in that profile picture.
Falcon 9 tanks pressed for strong back retract.
Speaking of big catches, we are just in time to catch that call from
Strong back retract started.
SpaceX Mission Control. As you're hearing, they are pressurizing for the retraction of the strong back or the transporter erector. Also getting our ground level, pad level views here of the Falcon 9 rocket there at Space Launch Complex 40. You can see the clamp arms beneath the payload fairings have opened up. Soon that large structure just behind those fairings running along the rocket, the strong back will recline a few degrees away from the vehicle, stay in that position until liftoff. A little bit of housekeeping here. If you notice the clock in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, a little bit different from what's coming in from the SpaceX views. Reason being, the clock at the upper right-hand corner, hours, is in real time, and what's coming in from SpaceX is on a slight delay. So we'll be making our callouts in real time up until the point at which we're relying exclusively on the SpaceX onboard cameras. Now, just under 3 minutes to lift off. At this point, the first stage liquid oxygen tank should be full.
Stage 1 lux load is complete.
Just heard that call for stage 1 lock. So we're expecting a similar call regarding stage 2 coming up here in about 30 seconds based off of the time difference between real time and the SpaceX timeline. But in real time, just about now, the second stage liquid oxygen tank should be full. Shortly, we'll see some additional venting. Those will be the ground gas
Stage 2
closeouts.
lux load is complete.
Good call from SpaceX. And there you see the beginning of the ground gas closeouts as they're removing the remaining liquid oxygen from the feed line.
Ground gas closeouts.
Good call there. As we're closing in on the final minute of the count, be sure to stick around after the booster landing is complete. We'll be showing you some launch replays from our various camera views here at the press site and elsewhere of this launch. T-minus 1 minute and counting.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
We're now just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to give their go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Enough. Lake go for launch call with 10 seconds left on the board. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engine ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket on Starlink 6-75. Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. Now a little more than a minute into flight. Rocket passing through max Q, the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Soon they'll be thermally conditioning the Merlin vacuum engine ahead of its ignition. Two minutes into flight. Falcon 9 a little tricky to track tonight given the periodic clouds it's cruising between. Coming up on a few events in fairly rapid succession. We'll see
Nominal
first stage
trajectory.
main engine cutoff coming up here in the next few seconds, followed by stage separation and second stage engine start. There you see Miko. Stage separation. And we should have second stage engine start.
Main engine cut off.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
Good calls, good visuals from SpaceX. Got a little hard to track given the periodic clouds that we're running into. Payload fairings should be deployed in real time, though it's going to be hard to see through the clouds.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Got good views, though, from the onboard cameras. We're about 2.5 minutes away from the next major milestone, which will be the first stage entry burn. That's when SpaceX will use 3 of the engines on the Falcon booster to begin to slow the vehicle down. Now 4 minutes into flight. Now approaching 5 minutes into flight based off of the SpaceX timeline of things. We should just be about a minute away from the start of the entry burn here as we look up through the inner stage there on the left-hand side of your screen. Still appears to be a good burn of the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage at this point in the flight. Not hearing a whole lot of calls from SpaceX Mission Control this evening. Should be under 20 seconds to entry burn.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Good call out there. This burn
Stage
should
1
last
FTS is saved.
about 25 seconds in total. That second call about the FTS, the flight termination system on the first stage, safed, no longer needed at this stage in flight.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
Both vehicles maintain a nominal trajectory.
Good calls there.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
As we're approaching minute 7, the single engine landing burn set to begin now in just about 45 seconds.
Stage 1 transonic.
Booster now traveling below the speed of sound. About 20 seconds to the start of the landing burn.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And B-1080 completes its 18th trip to space and back.
MVAC shut down.
And a good call for MVAC shutdown. Did not hear the call out that they achieved a nominal parking orbit, but assuming that happened shortly before the music queued up. At this point, the Falcon 9 second stage will continue in that coast phase until about T plus 54 minutes and 6 seconds. Then there will be a brief 2-second burn on that engine, helping to circularize the orbit. Then the Starlink satellites, all 28 of them, set to deploy at about T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 15 seconds post liftoff. And as we mentioned before liftoff, we've got some replays for you coming up here momentarily. As we're getting those in the queue, want to remind you that we've got another Falcon 9 rocket launch set to lift off as it currently stands from here at Pad 40 in the wee hours of Sunday morning. Be sure to head over to spaceflightnow.com, click on the launch schedule tab, and that way you'll be notified when that launch is ready to go. Right now, the window is set to open at 4:48 a.m. Eastern. Although I think I could speak for all of us that we're all hoping it slides quite a bit to the right into the window. But we shall see. We'll be ready for it either way. Keep your eye on the pad there at Space Launch Complex 40 as the strong back is coming back to the upright position in preparation for that mission. Part of SpaceX's process of turning around the pad as quickly as possible. And it looks like we are ready with the replays, so we'll go ahead and get that in queue now. We're going to start with a look back at the wide shot set up by our Adam Bernstein. As we're watching our various views from around the press site here, do want to thank a few folks in the live chat for your support this evening. This is our turn basin shot here, one of my favorite views. Eternal Alley with a $5 super chat saying, awesome channel. Appreciate you, Alley. Channel member Deb with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Deb. It says, thank you, team. So cool. That blonde space girl with a $5 super chat as well. Little heart emoji. Appreciate that. Mitchell Wilbur with a $20 super chat. Thank you so much for supporting us at that level, Mitchell. And also for your continued support as a channel member, of course. Hearing a little bit of that rumble there at the tail end of this one. Got some nice little extra pop with our new microphone. Mitchell says, well done to Callisti Lee, Jeff, Aussie Space Girl. And then jokingly says, get well a popsicle. Look at our tracker shot here now, also from Adam's tracking view. So go to I am Lita next with a $5 super chat, who says, thanks Spaceflight Now for another great show. See you next time. Appreciate all you do. Thank you, Lita. Good to see you tonight again. Another channel member, Phil Karn, with a $10 super chat, saying, great work. When did they do the deorbit burn? That comes shortly after the deployment of the Starlink satellites, a little more than an hour post liftoff. So, within just about an hour or so from now. Beverly Knuckles with a $10 super chat, another channel member, says, just saw the second stage, just a few seconds next to a bright moon. That is very cool. Nicole Dice with a $10 super chat as well. Thank you, Nicole. Also want to thank Florida Spaceflight for $10 super chat, saying or asking any updates on the next New Glenn and Falcon Heavy launches. Good questions on both. As far as the next New Glenn launch, the official word on that is somewhere in the June time frame, although Blue Origin themselves, it's been a while since they've said anything explicitly on that besides, broadly speaking, springtime, which of course we're smack in the middle of at this point. Then we'll have to wait for a little bit more clarification on when New Glenn is going to be ready to launch next, and I'll be sure to keep you updated as we hear more things on that. They did just do a static fire test of their second stage supporting that mission, so good next step towards that launch, certainly. As far as the next Falcon Heavy launch, I do believe there is a Falcon Heavy later this year, but I am struggling to think of what mission that is. We will have to get back to you on that, Florida Spaceflight. As soon as we do have something more definitive on that, though, we'll put it up on the launch schedule page on our website. Eli Ellers with a 12-pound super chat as well. Thank you, Eli. Taking a look at our mission stats as they currently stand with a good liftoff and landing of the first stage booster here. That marked the 18th flight of B-1080. This was the 468th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 51st of the year so far. This was the 408th Falcon booster reflight, or the launch of a booster that has flown at least once. This is SpaceX's 142nd orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 247th orbital launch from Pad 40, and the 302nd overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Moving on to some recovery stats after we take a quick look at the bar chart here. This was the 118th booster landing on the drone ship. Just read the instructions. The 351st SpaceX drone ship landing, and the 440th overall SpaceX booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 37th orbital flight from Florida, the 55th orbital launch from U.S. soil, the 60th from a U.S. rocket company, and the 92nd orbital launch from around the globe. 2 launch failures on the board now, of course, including the 6th flight of a Firefly Alpha rocket, sad to say. So here's where our pie chart now currently stands. Got a little bit of assist from Stephen, behind the scenes as far as the question from Florida Spaceflight on Falcon Heavy launches. Assuming it is ready to go, and that'll be the big deciding factor on this, but if Astrobotic's Griffin lander is ready for a launch at the end of this year, then it's set to lift off in the December timeframe, or broadly speaking, Q4 of calendar year 2025, Q4, that is. Of course, the Griffin lander was originally set to carry NASA's Viper rover, but those plans were scrapped. NASA is still looking for another potential company or entity to take on Viper as it currently stands. In its stead, the Griffin lander will now carry the Flip rover coming from Astrolab. Flip rover, a vehicle that will test a lot of the systems that'll be used and demonstrated on Astrolab's Flex rover, the larger unpressurized rover designed to carry both humans and cargo around on the moon, also coming from Astrolab. That vehicle vying for a contract, competing with two other companies, Intuitive Machines and Lunar Outpost, to support a mission ahead of the Artemis 5 flight and win a contract from NASA for its LTV, or Lunar Terrain Vehicle program. If you'd like to learn more about that, you can head over, or actually stay right where you are here on YouTube. Check out that video that we did from our time at the 4-Day Space Symposium, where we got to talk to all three of the companies, Astrolab, Lunar Outpost, and Intuitive Machines. Get a chance to sit inside their lunar terrain vehicles as well, talk about the ins and outs, their thoughts on design, and they give you their 30-second pitch on why they should be chosen. It's a great time, if I don't say so myself, a good little video, so we hope you check it out if you haven't already. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wind things down here, as apparently my voice is starting to call it quits for the night. I want to thank our friends Pete Karstens with Max Q Productions, Chuck and Jen Briggs with C&J Images. Our thanks as well to our wonderful tracker, Adam Bernstein, to Stephen Young for running the technical operations of the broadcast. Big thanks as well to all of our moderators in the live chat, to Callistia Lee and Rick Donner. Tenzakasi Space Girl was here as well. Jeff Hansen. Appreciate all of you for your help tonight. Last thank you goes to Road Doggin for a $5 super chat. Appreciate your Road. And that'll do it for us tonight. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.